good afternoon and good evening to you, wherever in the world you are. Welcome to Wednesday's edition of the Full 100. It's a sad day today. I need to start my show by sending my condolences to the parents, friends and family of Walter Wallace Jr., 27 years old, shot to death by the police in Pennsylvania. Clearly a young man who had mental health issues, had a knife, approaching the police, was still yards away from where they were. They could have deployed tasers, they could have ran back and kept going back until they were able to control him, but they chose to murder him on the streets of the United States. This needs to stop. Unfortunately, I'm not going into his issue today, as my show was already prepared. Guys, today's show is more to do with the pros and cons of lockdown. I'm gonna discuss two reports that came out. One of the reports is called the Great Barrington Declaration, and the counter report to that is called the John Snow Memorandum. Guys, without further ado, let's get to it. Right, as I said, guys, there's been a lot of debate about lockdown. I have my opinions about it. Lockdown did help at the beginning. I don't believe full lockdown will help now. I believe what many of the countries are doing is the best way to go about this, which is targeted, concentrated lockdowns or concentrated measures in spots or areas or cities and towns where this shows up. This report is by a scientist from Oxford University, one from Stanford University, and one from Harvard University. So these are top boys in their trade, okay? And they are pushing for herd immunity. However, this is based on the American mentality. They're seeing nothing being done, so they're coming out with this report. And then there's a counter report to that, which is John Snow one, which is telling them you're crazy. That doesn't help. And I'm going to show you why. So let me start with the first debate now. With the first video, which is telling you about the reports. Take a look, guys.
Are the harms of lockdown worse than the virus itself? That's today's survey question, and I'm Michael Smerconish in Philadelphia. We're 10 days away from the election, and the U.S. is now in the midst of the long-dreaded fall surge. The U.S. has hit a major milestone yesterday. It recorded its highest one-day number of COVID-19 infections, more than 83,000. This shattered the country's previous record set in July by more than 6,000. Plus, more than 41,000 COVID-19 patients were in hospitals yesterday. And experts warned that the daily numbers will get worse, saying the culprits for this rise in new cases are indoor socializing, outbreaks at schools, and pandemic fatigue. That sounds like a case for additional lockdown. And indeed, this weekend, millions of Europeans are facing tougher coronavirus restrictions. Wales is beginning a 2-week lockdown. Manchester, England is back under the highest tier of restrictions. And Ireland has also imposed its strictest level of restrictions in weeks. But a proposal written by a group of well-credentialed scientists says there's a solution to pandemic fatigue, quote, allow those who are at minimal risk of death to live their lives normally, to build up immunity to the virus through natural infection, while better protecting those who are at highest risk. The document is called the Great Barrington Declaration. The original authors are 3 physicians from Stanford, Harvard, and Oxford. They advocate for what they call focused protection. Quote, the most compassionate approach that balances the risks and benefits of reaching herd immunity is to allow those who are at minimal risk of death to live their lives normally, to build up immunity to the virus through natural infection, while better protecting those who are at highest risk. The manifesto's central tenet is that not returning to normal life is doing more harm than good, resulting in long-lasting physical and mental health problems. Therefore, the declaration says, restaurants and other businesses should open. Arts, music, sport, and other cultural activities should resume. People who are more at risk may participate in if they wish, while society as a whole enjoys the protection conferred upon the vulnerable by those who have built up herd immunity. Publication of the Great Barrington Declaration drew swift response in the form of something called the Jon Snow Memorandum. No, not a Game of Thrones reference. This is a tip of the hat to Jon Snow, who was a legendary epidemiologist. The signatures to this document say the Great Barrington Declaration would endanger Americans who have underlying conditions that put them at high risk from severe COVID-19 and result in perhaps 500,000 deaths. Quote, in addition to the human cost, this would impact the workforce as a whole and overwhelm ability of healthcare systems to provide acute and routine care. Furthermore, there's no evidence for lasting protective immunity to SARS-CoV-2 following natural infection. Such a strategy would not end the COVID-19 pandemic, but result in recurrent epidemics, as was the case with numerous infectious diseases before the advent of vaccination.
Welcome back, guys. Right, that's the first part of the video, or the first part of the discussion, if you like. Let me just make a quick note. Many of you have seen videos of doctors in these white coats and with all credentials at the bottom of the name of these videos, right-wing videos. And these are doctors for hire. So if you want a doctor that can make you look good, they're there to be hired just to get a living out of what they do. These doctors that are on this next clip, the doctors at the top of their game. These are people that are employed by Harvard, by Oxford University. When I put doctors on my show to discuss a topic, they're not from the dark web, guys, okay? These are doctors that you can actually call them. You can go and visit them in the hospital or the reputable, not your witchcraft doctor on a Sunday who's a witch on a Sunday talking about aliens impregnating people, and then on a Monday they're back at work and telling you about hydroxychloroquine. Okay, so guys, basically what they're talking about is basically the other side of the doctors are proposing herd immunity, basically, and the opposite debate is against it. So guys, here's the part 2 to the video. Take a look.
Also criticizing the declaration is John Barry, a professor at Tulane University's School of Public Health and Tropical Medicine. He wrote a piece for the New York Times which was titled, "What Fans of Herd Immunity Won't Tell You," and he also literally wrote the book on a deadly pandemic, The Great Influenza, the story of the deadliest pandemic in history. Professor John Barry joins me now to discuss, along with Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, Stanford University epidemiologist, professor, and health economist, and one of the authors of the Great Barrington Declaration. Dr. Bhattacharya, let me start with you. In short, are you saying that the young and others who are least vulnerable should resume life knowing that many will get COVID, that they'll survive, and ultimately help slow the spread of the virus? Is that the argument?
Yes, that's the argument. For them, COVID is less dangerous than the other dangers they face. 1 in 4 of young adults, for instance, seriously considered suicide in June. The economic collapse caused by the lockdowns have led to endangering the lives of 130 million people worldwide of starvation, actual starvation.
You know, Dr. Bhattacharya, that opponents of this school of thought say it's reckless and that many, many will die as a result. What's your response to that?
I mean, you can look at the current policy. The current policy has led to hundreds of thousands of deaths of Americans, that many of which are avoidable. The current policy, the idea is that we slow the spread of the disease, and that protects the vulnerable.
Professor Barry, you certainly don't agree with what Dr. Bhattacharya has had to say. Why not?
Well, neither situation is a good one. We are in a bad place. The question is, which is going to be least harmful? And I think it's pretty clear that, if we go the route that they recommend, you're going to see a minimum, according to the models, a minimum. If it requires only 40% to reach herd immunity, then you would have 800,000 deaths. And most people think that it would take more like 60 to 70% to reach herd immunity. In one study, 78%, including people with no symptoms, of the people infected with COVID have some heart damage. To say that our policy now isn't working is absolutely correct. I agree completely, but that's a straw man because we don't have a policy. The White House has refused to follow the advice of public health professionals. So I respect the signers of the Great Barrington Declaration, but they are a very distinct minority of public health professionals.
Welcome back, guys. Right. What do I think? Now, for what they're proposing, my next video is going to show you that it's a mad thing. But I understand where they're coming from. Do you know why? Two of the doctors are in America, Stanford and Harvard. One's in England. But they're looking at the American perspective, really. Because their frustration is, well, we've had all these little shutdowns and here and there, but look, we're not. That's because they didn't go all out. That's because they didn't go all out. There's been no policy in that country. Now, going for herd immunity, can you see Germany, Australia, Canada, the UK, and all these countries that have put things in place that worked, killed the virus in their country, but now it's coming back? Can you see them going for, all right, like everyone just, no, they're not going to go for that. And neither should America go for that. Do you know why? Take a look at my next video.
I also want you to comment on this new British study that we're seeing about immunity and what they found in a big, I believe it was a very large study. At the beginning of the study in June, 6% of those who took the tests had the antibodies, okay? That was their response to having had coronavirus. By September, only 4.4% of them did. In other words, 3 months later, that the antibodies had gone down that much. I mean, this is why the herd immunity is such a fallacy, that even if you are exposed, you might have antibody protection for what, 3 months?
Now do you see what I mean? There is no herd immunity from this thing. This ain't like any disease we've ever seen before. Let me tell you how many people took part in those, because they're talking about percentages. Some people might not be able to really get down to the nitty-gritty. Let me tell you something. And that's our own British report that was, yeah? Because now we've had 6 months of it. So they're collecting data all the time. Now, 400,000 people were tested. 400,000 people who had got infected. Some of them asymptomatic, some of them symptoms, some of them in hospital and came out, some of them had bad time and came out. All kinds of people, right? But every one of them had caught this virus. 400,000 people. Of the 400,000 people, when they tested them afterwards, only 6% had immunity. Only 6. So 94% can catch it again and again and again. What does that number translate to? 6% of 400,000 people, my friends, is 24,000 people. So of 400,000 people, only 24,000 people had some kind of immunity. That's not enough. You're going to kill people for the sake of getting only 6% of people immune. 3 months later, they tested them again. This time, only 4%, right? This time, only 4% had immunity. What's that number? 16,000. It is not a policy to follow. Now we know of 400,000 people, only 24,000 had any kind of immunity. 3 months later, only 16,000 still had immunity left. People is not the one to follow. Right, I'm on to my last video now. Many groups I've been in share a video of this woman called Kate Shemirani. In the summer, I called her out. I attacked her on her own platform. She had 400-500 people listening. I didn't care. I told them the truth. I told them they were idiots. This woman's like a fake mad prophet. The shame is she was a nurse, but now she's struck off. She's been struck off because she's lost her mind. She's been struck off because no one trusts her. Now I'm bringing you a video from her son. This is a video from her son, and I'm not going to say no more. Take a look at this video.
Throughout the pandemic, conspiracy theories have been spreading across the internet. But one man has been speaking out against his own mother after she became one of the leading proponents of fake news. Now, Sebastian Shemirani says he's worried about the impact his mother is having. Mariana Spring reports.
My brother rings me and he says, Sebastian, I think we've got a problem. Mum's got 40,000 YouTube followers. And, at that point, my face just dropped. I knew immediately what was going on.
Sebastian is 21 from East Sussex, and his mum, Kate Shemirani, has become notorious for spreading conspiracy theories during the pandemic.
What she's doing is dangerous.
You nurses dancing, I'm coming for you.
This is her 5 minutes of fame.
You will stand trial for genocide.
I don't want to be here talking about, but it's something I think we've got to do before these ideas get bigger and more people fall down the same route that she's trying to take them down. You can only prevent it before it happens.
Now a suspended nurse, she has become a headliner at anti-lockdown rallies.
All a lie, this COVID-19.
And promoted baseless conspiracy theories about 5G, vaccines and the pandemic.
That's going to go into your DNA, it's going to change you forever, which means that you are no longer of the creator, they can put a patent on you, and you cannot be genocided.
Sebastian's concerns are about public health. There is no evidence to back up claims his mum makes about 5G and coronavirus, which have been linked to real-world damage, and she encourages followers to ignore health guidance. As a child, he says he was frequently exposed to conspiracy theories. At 17, he left home, and they are now only in touch via text.
When this is over in 3 or 4 years' time, and everything she said is forgotten, and the global genocide hasn't happened within my family, and the relationships that she's losing now, that stuff stays forever.
Welcome back, guys. We've come to the end of the show now. I've seen her video shared just in the last 2 weeks on a platform full of blacks, and they're sharing it like she's a prophet. They're sharing it like this is something to enlighten anybody. Guys, her own children who are intelligent people can see she's crazy. It's time you all wake the hell up, okay? And stop promoting the enemies as your friends. The time when I challenged her, I saw her say the Lord's Prayer like 1,000,000 times with people following her, people on a live feed saying the Lord's Prayer because they're going to send the new world orders coming at us. She doesn't even understand what a world order means. You want to know what world order means? Go check out my video back in the summer, around about June, July. Go back to the platform, my videos, and check out my video on what the new world order, a world order actually means. It's not an order handed down from above, okay? Guys, I hope you've enjoyed the show, and I hope it's been informative. I look forward to seeing you all on my last show on Friday. Be a bit more lighthearted, and we'll discuss things then. In the meantime, enjoy the midweek and enjoy the rest of the week, and I'll see you all on Friday. Take care now. Bye-bye.